It is no secret that Russia has pledged its support to Burkina Faso and other African nations. With Africa's traditional partnerships with the West on the decline, Russia is stepping in to offer military and trade assistance. But what motivates this shift in partnership, and what benefits do both sides stand to gain? Make sure to subscribe to our channel, The African Web, and ring the bell icon before continuing the video. Since Ibrahim Traoré assumed power in 2022, he has shifted Burkina Faso's alliances away from its traditional partners and former colonial ruler France, choosing instead to align with Russia. Russia, in turn, has been enthusiastic about this partnership, offering military training and equipment to help the Burkinabe military combat insurgency and insecurity in the country. During his recent African tour, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited Burkina Faso and promised to send additional Russian military instructors to train the Burkinabe military and law enforcement. He also confirmed that Russia would continue supplying military equipment to strengthen the country's defense against militant groups, though he did not specify the types of equipment. At a news conference, Lavrov mentioned that Russian instructors are already on the ground and their numbers will increase. We have supplied and will continue to supply military equipment to help strengthen Burkina Faso's defense capability and eliminate the remaining terrorist groups, he said. Lavrov also praised Burkina Faso's objective and fair stance on the war in Ukraine. "We are ready to support the just cause of Africans who are striving to free themselves from neo-colonial influence," he added. From these statements, it is clear that Russia is keen to deepen its collaboration with Burkina Faso. The real question is, why? Russia is expanding its relationships with Burkina Faso and other African nations as a strategy to counteract the effects of Western sanctions and its resulting isolation. By providing military assistance to the Burkinabe forces, Russia seeks to establish strategic footholds and diminish French and Western influence in the region. This partnership offers mutual benefits. Russia strengthens its geopolitical presence, while Traoré's government receives crucial support to address security challenges. Since 2015, Burkina Faso has faced escalating violence from extremist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, resulting in severe humanitarian crises. Despite the presence of French troops intended to combat this violence, security conditions have worsened, making Burkina Faso increasingly dangerous. Captain Traoré, disillusioned with the ineffective French intervention, seized power in 2022, vowing to tackle the insecurity crisis. He significantly reduced French influence, terminated their military agreement in January 2023, and sought new alliances with countries like Russia, Turkey, China, and Iran. Traoré's shift to these new partners reflects a broader frustration with traditional Western aid and its inability to produce tangible improvements. While it remains uncertain whether Russian support will completely resolve Burkina Faso's security issues, it presents a potentially more effective alternative compared to previous Western efforts. This move is part of a larger trend where African nations are exploring more diverse and equitable international partnerships. For example, after a coup in Niger, the country expelled French forces, faced a suspension of US aid, yet continued to pursue its interests by maintaining defense cooperation with the US while also exploring ties with Russia. This shift highlights Africa's growing inclination towards partnerships that are mutually beneficial and respect their sovereignty. As African nations seek to break free from historical dependencies, they are increasingly turning towards countries that offer support without the strings attached, aiming for a balanced and multipolar world order. This trend is indicative of Africa's desire for diverse, pragmatic relationships that address their needs and priorities effectively. Once Niger began exploring military cooperation with Russia, the United States promptly sought a meeting with Niger's government to discuss future relations. Instead of addressing how to lift its self-imposed suspension of aid, the US imposed a condition. Niger must terminate any military partnership with Russia for defense cooperation to resume. This exemplifies a superiority complex where the US feels entitled to dictate terms without actually solving the host country's problems. It begs the question, who gave the US the authority to decide which countries African nations can partner with? Africa is no longer a collection of colonies, but a continent of sovereign, independent nations. In a similar vein, Mauritius has joined the growing list of African countries willing to turn away from Western alliances in favor of partnering with Russia. In April, Mauritian ambassador to Russia, Keswa Janki, participated in the African International Congress in Moscow, held from April 5th to 6th. During the Congress, he discussed how Africa should respond to shifts in the global economic structure and called for the establishment of a new world order. Following the meeting, Ambassador Janki shared with the media how Russian cooperation has significantly contributed to the growth of Mauritius's economy. He emphasized that given the rapidly changing global landscape, Russia has become a key player for the small island nation. The West's persistent superiority complex, always seeking to exceed its bounds, is a significant factor prompting Africa to turn away and favor Russia and China as dependable partners. Historically, Africa has favored the West, but what tangible benefits have African nations gained from this long-standing preference? In today's interconnected world, where Africa cannot isolate itself from foreign partnerships and independently develop, seeking equitable alliances is paramount. Interestingly, Russia shows indifference towards African countries partnering with the West. Contrary to media portrayals, Russia's actions are primarily aimed at breaking free from Western-imposed isolation through initiatives like BRICS, advocating for a multipolar world where all nations have a voice in global affairs. This contrasts sharply with the current global order dominated by the US and its allies, who wield considerable influence and can impose punitive measures on dissenters. Curiously, in their sense of superiority, the West suggests Africa's preference for Russia results from Russian disinformation campaigns. Western media often insinuates that Russia spreads falsehoods about the West to sway African opinion. This accusation is not only insulting to Africans, implying they are easily manipulated, but also hypocritical given the West's own use of media to shape global perceptions. Western media narratives often depict Africa as dependent and incapable of self-determination, portraying African leaders who challenge Western interests as dictators and human rights violators. If anyone is engaging in disinformation campaigns, it is the West itself, positioning them as the primary purveyors of biased narratives. As African countries reflect on recent geopolitical shifts, particularly in the aftermath of the US sanctions against Russia following the Ukraine conflict, a stark realization has emerged. Traditional Western allies may not always prioritize Africa's interests. This realization has prompted many African nations to reassess their international partnerships, increasingly turning towards Russia as a more reliable ally. What are your thoughts on this evolving trend? How do you perceive Africa's changing geopolitical strategy? Share your views in the comments section below. Do not forget to like, subscribe to our channel The African Web, and ring the bell icon to stay updated with our latest insights and analyses.